Hello, Peter Freeth here, jumping on the webinar bandwagon, late as usual, but it's something I've been thinking about for some time, but I couldn't really be bothered to think of anything to talk about. And then the wonderful Penni Lamprey, all the way from Australia, emailed me and said that she'd like some help with understanding something in the Master Practitioner manual. And it gave me the idea of inviting readers' suggestions and readers' questions. So that's what I'm going to do. Every week I'm going to make a video and your job is to email me a question or something that you'd like me to explain or to clarify for you from my books or maybe trainings or maybe other videos that you've seen. And so this week I'm going to start with the question from Penny. And the question from Penny, I'll read it off my email. It says, I finished 4 or 5 books penned by you, but wonder if there's a vid online of a session where you discuss the possible ways to challenge the practice statements included in the Master Prac manual. That would help my need for external validation immensely. Well, just for you, Penny, but also for all the rest of you as well. You're allowed to watch too. So what she's talking about is in the Master Practitioner manual. There's a section of practice statements, and these are real statements that either people have said to me in coaching sessions or that I've received in emails, or maybe interesting things I've seen in interviews on TV or heard in interviews on the radio. Mostly it's from emails and coaching sessions. And so I'm going to pick a couple of these at random, because her question, Penny's question, has an important presupposition in it, which I think is quite critical when we're looking at using meta model in a real life scenario like a coaching session. And just the other day I was having a discussion with another reader, John Soriano in Florida. Hello, John. And he said that he'd heard that, or had some advice from a trainer somewhere, that you should never ask more than 5 meta model questions in a row, because that can be overloading or that can be intrusive or whatever for the client. I certainly agree that if your intention is to use meta model to change somebody's belief or change their perception, then yes, relentlessly, well, what do you mean by that, and who says you shouldn't, and what would happen if you did, and if I could wave a magic wand, then what would happen, and all that nonsense. That's a trivial use of meta model. We don't use meta model to change people's perceptions, because that presupposes that we would be imposing our map on theirs, which we don't do with NLP. It's generative, remember. And so if a trainer says you shouldn't ask 5 meta model questions in a row, what they're revealing is a fundamental misunderstanding of generative change, fundamental misunderstanding of meta model and of NLP, in my view. And therefore I'm going to suggest to you is actually we can ask 100 meta model questions in a row, because all we're doing is exploring. The act of exploring, if you imagine somebody's got a map of the world but they're folding the map up, but you can't immediately tell from folding the map up that it is folded, because all the lines still join up and all the roads and the towns still look like they're in the right places. So only when somebody unfolds that map we think, oh, there's a bit that I'd forgotten about, there's a bit that gone missing. More importantly, maybe the speaker or the client, if we're talking about coaching, doesn't forget or overlook or lose a bit of the map. They make it disappear. Something that they are avoiding, or a way that they've constructed reality, has caused that bit of information to go missing. And yet using meta model we can recover that. And the approach that we should be taking with meta model is not to intervene or to change anything, but to explore. And therefore it doesn't matter whether we're exploring what the client describes as a talent or what they describe as a problem. Because when a client talks about a problem, they're not really describing the problem. What they're describing is a symptom, or actually a story about the symptom. They're telling you a story, and I'm sure you've had that experience where you feel like the client's telling you a story that they've probably told many times before, and I think that's probably a fair assumption. So let's get into how we would tackle some of these statements. I'll pick some at random and just see what we can infer from them. And to infer from any of these statements, of course, what we're not doing is going away in a dark room, performing a thorough analysis, and then coming back and presenting a diagnosis to the client and saying, aha, I know what's wrong with you. and this is the solution. That's not what we're doing. At every stage we're forming hypotheses, and ideally we're in front of the live client, and we're able to present those hypotheses to them and ask them, I wonder if you feel this way, or I wonder if this ever happens to you, or I wonder if you experience this kind of conflict, and they'll say yes or no. And that allows us to form hypotheses and test them, and then we move forward with the client. And it's really as simple as that. It's a very analytical process, but to the client it feels like a gentle exploration, an expanding of the map, an unfolding of the map, and from that they will get certain insights, and from that they will create their own reframes. They don't need us to do anything for them. They don't need us to wave a magic wand or wade in there with a technique, right, sit there and I'm going to collapse your anchors and all that nonsense. We don't need any of that. Once the client is looking at the from the perspective, from a different perspective of their reality, they will figure out for themselves what to do. There's very little work we need to do at that point. It really is the old adage of knowing where to tap versus any idiot can tap. It's knowing where to tap. And critically with meta-model questions in a live client environment, not just knowing where to tap, but also knowing when. We may have all the information we need at the start of the interaction. We may know exactly what we're going to do in order to introduce some different perspective or different point of view. But if we just launched into that at the beginning, it wouldn't necessarily have the same impact as when the client's at the point of that realization for themselves. And therefore knowing when to tap is at least as important as knowing where. So I'll start off with number 4. I'm useless. It's a very interesting statement. You might think there's not much in there. If we undo the contraction, first of all, I am useless. Now, some people would say, I am, that's a complex equivalence, and therefore the person's telling you that they're useless. So what? That doesn't tell you anything. Let's. I think with meta-model, it's too easy just to dive into the details, and one of the most important things that we do actually is step back first. So let's think about the word use. So useless is a negation. Let's think about what the word use means. It's about purpose. It's about utility. We can use something, and therefore for use to be a verb hidden within that statement, I'm useless, there must be some concept of something being used by someone. So if a tool is useless, if I am trying to open a can of soup and I get the can opener out and it's blunt and I can't get it on the can and I throw it away and say, this is useless. What I'm saying is this can opener, this device, is useless for this purpose. I'm unable to get this thing to do what I want it to do. And so for somebody to say I'm useless, if we take that, if we step back and look at what are the dependencies on the verb to use, well, a thing must be used by a person for a purpose. There must be an outcome in mind. So you can imagine a situation where, let's say a mean boss at work says, I need you to do this report for me by 5 o'clock today, and the member of staff, their employee says, well, I can't do it, I'm really busy and my computer stopped working, and I say, you're useless. Their use of that phrase reveals that their intention is to use that person. They have a purpose in mind for them. And so the bit of the map that we're unfolding is that for a person to be useless, that must be a judgment by the person whose intention was to use them. Does that make sense? So what we're actually looking at here is a lost performative. I'm useless doesn't tell you anything about the speaker's actions or intentions. What they're doing is they're recounting what they've been told by somebody else. Now you might say, I'm useless. That's obviously a lost performative, so I just go straight in there with, who told you who told you that you're useless? And they would say, I don't know, just, people, and I suppose, and you just end up making them defensive. They become more resistant to exploring that idea with you. So you've just shot yourself in the foot there, totally. So what we need to do is take a step back. I'm useless. Who is it that's tried to use you? For what purpose has they tried to use you? You're useless for what purpose? Because we're all useful for some things, and we're all useless at others. I'm useless at, let me have a think of something that I'm not very good at. I don't know, plastering. I couldn't plaster a wall. If I was renovating a house, I couldn't plaster a wall. I would have a go, and it would be all lumpy, and it will be all wobbly, and I would say, I'm useless at plastering. And that might be true. I'm useless at plastering, not I am useless in general. So what we've got to do is is expand the map and recover the dependencies on the verb. So I am useless for who? For what purpose? And then, through that tactful, gentle questioning, they might realise that a particular person has judged them as useless. And then they apply that to other situations in their life. But why do they do that? Why do they apply that to other situations? Why do they tell that story? Why do they continue to project that forward as an expectation? Well, actually being useless has some benefits. Because if you're not useful, then people don't ask you to do things. Now you might think, well, if I say, well, I'm useless at doing housework, and so I'm never going to get asked by my partner to do the cleaning. My partner's going to say, you can't do the cleaning, you're useless at cleaning, I'll do it myself. That I would call a result. So, in all of these stories that people tell, we have this paradox that they're telling us, I'm useless, nobody trusts me, and they don't rely on me, and I don't know, I can't do that, and I can't do this because I'm useless. But actually useless has quite a lot of benefits. Well, no use asking me, no point asking me to do something. Don't ask me to do anything that requires any kind of risk or responsibility, because I'm useless. And therefore, I get off scot-free. I don't have to take that risk. However, because I don't take the risk, I don't get the reward. So, the circle that person goes around is avoiding the risk of being rejected or being insulted or devalued by being told that they're useless because they try to do something and they fail. So they're avoiding failure, but yet at the same time they're keeping themselves very nice and safe and not having to do any hard work. Thank you very much. So when we're doing the exploring of the map, we've always got to explore from the point of view of, wow, that's amazing, you're useless, that's wonderful. I can imagine that has some real benefits for you. Benefits? What are you talking about? Well, have you ever, for example, managed to get out of something that you didn't really want to do by claiming that you were useless at it? And they might say, yeah, I guess so. They'll say that if they trust you, if they think that you are on their side. Not if you have rapport. Forget rapport. Rapport's nonsense. It's trivial. Rapport's for used car dealers. It's not for coaches like us. What we have to create is trust and a genuine sense from the client's perspective that we're going to say things that they might not like, but we're always on their side in doing that. And therefore we play the role of the critical advocate. And something I often say to my clients is, this could be an uncomfortable process or an uncomfortable conversation for you. Would you rather be uncomfortable now in this room where it's just the two of us and we're having this confidential conversation, or would you rather be uncomfortable when you're out there talking to your boss or your customer or your spouse and having to go through the conflict or having to face up to this situation or this decision or whatever it is? And so far, everyone that I've said that to, I've offered that choice to, has said, I'll take the discomfort now, thanks very much. Because they can always get to the end of the session and go away and pretend it never happened. They can always do that. Because it is confidential after all. So our job is to create that extra insight by revealing the lost information, not by barging in there with a question that is intended to change or to influence. So let's pick an example. Another one. This is something that somebody said to me in a career coaching conversation. No one is going to progress me. I need to do it for myself. I don't want to keep holding myself back. There are certain actions that a person can't perform upon themselves. I don't know what you just thought of then, but stop it. There are certain actions that a person can't perform upon themselves. We can't pick ourselves up because we need leverage against the ground. I can't be lifted up by myself. I can't carry myself. I can't see myself. I can see my reflection in a mirror, but that's not me. That's not me as other people see me. And other people might see me completely differently to one another. So actually any verb I can't perform on myself, because linguistically, and in terms of the structure of the way I recount the experience, the story that I tell, I cannot be the subject and the object at the same time. So for example, I can't scratch myself. Oh my God, you think to yourself, I just saw you scratch yourself. No, you didn't. You saw my hand scratch my arm. But myself can't scratch myself. I can't be in two places. I, the entity known as I, my consciousness, my awareness, my mind, my focus, my self-concept, can't be in two places at once. So I can't scratch myself. I can scratch my arm, or my hand can scratch myself, but I can't do both. And actually, my arm isn't myself. My self is some concept that I carry around with me. So the interesting phrase at the end is, I don't want to keep holding myself back. Keep tells us there's a repetition, a loop. I keep doing something. Keep is also about protection and maintenance. If you think the word keep, in the case of a castle, the keep was the stronghold. So keep means to maintain, to keep in place, to protect, to maintain over time. And so keep tells us there's a loop. I keep doing it. I keep saying to myself, I don't want to keep holding myself back. How can you hold yourself back? How do you stop yourself? You physically can't do that. You can hold someone else back. And again, as in the previous example, if we expand the verb to hold, I hold something. So I hold myself. I can't hold myself. And therefore either I'm holding someone else or someone else is holding me. What we do is we carry around simulations of other people in our mind, and we play those simulations out in order to control or to create a sense of self-control. So if somebody at some point in my life, maybe in my childhood, kept telling me that I should stay where I am, stay safe, it's dangerous outside, don't go out by yourself, it's dangerous. And I felt at times, I want to go out, I want to see what's out in the world, I want to go and play in the street, I want to travel. No, don't do that. Don't stay where you are. Stay behind closed doors. Stay safe. In order to feel like I'm in control, what I will do is I will internalize that external direction or that external barrier. So I will say, oh no, I mustn't go outside because it's not safe. So think of this example. If you've got children, if you teach your children to cross the road, do you teach them that all roads are dangerous, or that some are, some are not, and just play it by ear? Of course, you'll say you teach them that all roads are dangerous. You don't want them to take the risk. And so they will say to themselves, I mustn't cross the road, mustn't just run out, all roads are dangerous. They'll repeat that to themselves like a mantra. And they will take ownership of that, they'll internalise that. So when somebody says, I'm holding myself back, what they might be saying is that they have internalised the experience of somebody else holding them back. Holding them back from what? No one is going to progress me. I need to do it for myself. Do what for myself? No one is going to progress me. Progress you to where? If all we do is meta-model the words that are in the statement they've given us, no one is going to progress me. Well, who's no one? I need to do it for myself. You need to do what for yourself? And yes, that can get a bit boring and a bit intense. But the things that people don't say are often more important than the things that they do. So if we expand all the dependencies on the verbs, no one person is going to progress me. Meaning what? That I can't depend on a person or a particular person. No one is going to progress me. Progress you to where? I need to do it for myself. to do it for myself, not to myself, not with myself, but for myself. And for can mean for the benefit of, and it can also mean on behalf of. I need to do it on behalf of myself. So I have to wait for somebody else to help me. So I can't cross the road by myself, I have to wait for somebody else to help me. Now, when you're a child, if you internalise the mantra, I mustn't cross the road by myself, I must wait for somebody to help me, I must wait for a grown-up to help me, I must wait for my mummy or daddy or teacher to help me, that's probably not a bad thing. If you if you hold on to that mantra as an adult, you're probably not going to cross many roads. You're probably going to be the kind of person who waits for the green man to come on, and then you anthropomorphise the green man. And the green man, no, we can't go, we've got to wait for the green man. The green man has let us cross the road, has helped us cross the road. So, to do it for myself tells us I'm waiting for somebody else to help me. I don't want to keep holding myself back. So, the paradox or the conflict just within the statement they've given us, I need to do it for myself, I don't want to keep holding myself back. Well, are they doing it for themselves or are they holding themselves back? Are they therefore talking about two different people? Is there a person in their life who they have seen as a supporter, an enabler? Is there a person in their life that they have seen as a barrier, somebody who holds them back? Well, actually that can be the same thing. Don't cross the road until I come and help you. Don't go out the house until I come and help you. Don't move to a new town until I help you, until I tell you that it's safe to do so. So what the person's telling me is about safety, about fear of doing something themselves, of making a decision, of taking a risk, and the simple exploration of the conflict between do it for myself and hold myself back can reveal who it was that did that, and the insight that that can bring. And I'm thinking actually of a particular client that this is applied to. The insight that it brought was that having his mother keep him in the house, keep him safe in the house, was at the age of 6, 8 years old. He's now a 40-year-old man. Clearly that doesn't apply anymore. And what can happen is seeing that own information in what they've revealed, the client can think, well, hang on a minute, I can understand how that was true and valuable for me at a certain time in my life, but it's not true now. And yet still there's a lingering sense that I can't take a risk until somebody else tells me that it's safe. Which is interesting given Penny's statement. That would help my need for external validation immensely. So I hope that this has, and Penny, I hope that you feel tremendously validated now. Thank you for watching. Remember, send me your questions from the book, from videos, anything at all, via email, and I'll put the email address at the bottom of the video, or the website or stuff, via LinkedIn, via Facebook pages and groups, however we're connected. Send me your questions, and every week I will pick one based on it probably being the only one that I receive, and I will make a little video. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. So see you next week or not. Bye.